Hi, this is Frank Kern, and I'm the creator of a marketing system called Mass Control that really did bring in $23.8 million in a 24-hour period. So you're thinking, yeah, could that really happen? You know, it sounds like a stretch. It sounds like typical marketing hype, right? I'm with you. So yes, it happened, but like anything, there's a little bit of a catch to the story, and there's probably some stuff you've never been told before because everyone wants to make such a big deal out of this in an effort to sell you something. So let me set the record straight right now. First of all, only $1 million of that money was actually mine, and all the money came in over the course of 4 separate launches. All right, so there were 4 separate launches whose cumulative orders over a combined 24-hour period made up a total of $23.8 million. Now, the third major thing that you need to know is this was not easy at all, okay? Lots of times when people like to tell you the story of this kind of stuff, they like to say, oh, we did this in our sleep or whatever. It wasn't easy. It was absolutely no walk in the park. It's an easier process for me now that I've done it over 4 different times in a row, but it wasn't easy getting to this point. Another thing you need to know is during the course of all of these launches, or almost all of them, things got ugly. Every single time, things got ugly. And I would like to give you a 33-page report that actually tells you the true story of exactly what happened with each of these 4 big launches. I'll get to that in a minute, but there's another thing you need to know. That is, we had a secret weapon. I call the secret weapon mass control. You've probably heard whispers of mass control happening over the past year or so. Basically, here's the deal about it. It's a marketing system I created that's based on black ops psychology that lets you sell lots of stuff without blatantly selling things to people. And I just use the word black ops there because it sounds cool. There's nothing really sneaky or shady about mass control at all. As a matter of fact, the point of mass control is that it positions you as the good guy and not as a pushy salesman, because nobody wants to hang out with a pushy salesman, and certainly nobody wants to be a pushy salesman, right? And the whole system relies on you giving away cool stuff to people instead of you holding your hand out and saying, hey, give me some money. So it's really all about you giving. And this makes people like you and see you as a friend. So here's kind of the big secret, or I should say one of many big secrets about mass control. It uses a sneaky little tactic that I call IDT. IDT stands for Implicit Decision Triggers. So here's what that's all about. Mass control basically just helps people decide for themselves that they want to buy your stuff. And this is what I call an implicit decision. And that's diametrically opposed to the normal method, which is you trying to convince people of something. So let's talk about implicit versus explicit decision making in the buying process, because this is extremely important to the way everything works. And if you get this, you're going to make a lot more money starting right now. Implicit means that I'm deciding that I want something. That decision is made implicitly by me. I'm making the decision. Okay? Explicitly means that someone else is convincing me that I want something. Now, which one do you think is going to be a more powerful decision? Of course it's going to be the implicit one, right? When I make the decision myself, it's a more powerful decision. Well, why is that? Well, first of all, when we decide something for ourselves, we will defend that position. We'll defend that decision. We own that, right? We made the conclusion ourselves. It's my decision. I'm right in this. I'm sticking with it. That's human nature 101, right? And when you use mass control, you simply take advantage of that human nature because you help people decide for themselves that they want your stuff. Now let's look at the old way, the traditional way that you've been sold to and that other people sell things. If someone convinces us of something, we're almost always going to have the subconscious desire to prove them wrong, right? And this is so true. And it's true for everybody, not just you, not just me. The entire world has this. If somebody convinces me of something, possibly against my will, so if I'm a skeptic and then someone turns me into a believer or whatever, that little seed of skepticism is always going to be there. And that subconscious desire to prove yourself right is always going to be there, right? And that's because when you start out as a skeptic, you've already made that implicit decision, haven't you? I don't believe this. I'm making the implicit decision that I don't believe this. Therefore, you're going to defend that decision forever whether it's subconsciously or not. So if you try to convince somebody of something, they're always going to have that subconscious desire to prove you wrong. And you're basically fighting against nature, right? So when you're doing the convincing, you're fighting. And it's hard. It's conflict. Convince, conflict. They actually sound the same almost. And this is no fun. But when people decide for themselves, then you're onto something. So what I'm telling you right now is one tiny little facet of mass control, but it's a very powerful strategy you can really start using immediately. So I'll kind of give you the overview of how it all works, right? First of all, you give people cool stuff, okay? You give people cool stuff that helps them that they can use. Now, based on the cool stuff that you give them, they decide for themselves that they want to do business with you. They, in turn, ask you to sell stuff to them. You agree, and therefore you sell stuff to them. This sounds almost stupid, right? You're probably thinking to yourself, all right, Frank, I mean, come on, this is ridiculous. It's so blatantly obvious on the surface, but very, very few people do it. And you might be thinking to yourself, okay, this sounds blatantly obvious and nobody does it, so what's the deal, you know? Does it work, right? Well, let me tell you about those 4 big launches that I was involved in and wrote all the copy for and used mass control on that I mentioned earlier. First time I tested this whole theory out, it was a test that I ran, and it was for serializer seminars that I conducted. These were $10,000 per head seminars that I sold. I only sold 100 seats to them. Bottom line is they sold out in a combined total of 54 minutes. It made me $1 million. I had no affiliates. I had a tiny list of only 8,000 people in there. I don't know why I put a $sign in front of the 8,000 thing there, but I'm not going to go and edit the slides. $8,000 people. All right. So I guess I had another disadvantage, right? I can't even type correctly. Let's talk about the second time I tested this. It was a dating launch that I worked on for my friend Neil Strauss. He launched a product called the Annihilation Method. That was extremely difficult for me, but it worked. I'll give you the whole story of what happened in that launch in the report that I've prepared for you. But the bottom line is that launch did $1.4 million in 4 hours. We had no affiliates. We began with a very tiny list, and we didn't even have a product. And that was just the beginning of the disadvantages that we had during that launch. But it worked, okay? Third test, one you've probably heard a lot about. A little launch they call StomperNet. That one did $18.3 million in a 24-hour period, and it is known as the biggest launch in the history of our industry, right? Well, I'm the guy that wrote all the launch copy for that and even wrote most of the sales letter for it, as a matter of fact. So did it work then? Yeah, worked pretty good. Fourth test I did was one called Pipeline Profits, you might have heard of. In comparison to StomperNet, now Pipeline Profits isn't going to look that cool, right? Because we only did $3.1 million in 24 hours. Okay, so did it work? Yeah, it worked pretty good. Look at all these big launches, right? But you're probably repeating a little question in your mind right now, which is this. Who cares, right? What do these big launches have to do with you? You probably want to know is, does this work for regular people? Does it work if you're not launching something, right? And by the way, speaking of launching, that's only a tiny portion of what mass control is all about, really. This isn't a launching system. I just happen to use it in these launches to achieve phenomenal success. So another question is, really the most important question, will it work for regular people, that is to say non-gurus, who aren't doing a big launch? Well, let's see. On October 29th, I launched Mass Control to my small list, and it sold out in 20 minutes. And when I say launch, I really can't even use the term launch because I just sent out some emails. I just gave people some free stuff, some free videos, and then said, hey, I'm going to sell this. I hope you buy it, right? And my list is 8,500 people now. Okay, so it sold out in 20 minutes, 8,500 people. The cost was $2,997 up front. I didn't offer a payment plan. I did not have any affiliates.